Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. This is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're here. We are on the final book of the Surrender Trilogy by Lydia Michaels. Now, if you haven't listened to the first two reviews of books 1 and 2, those links are going to be available down below in the description section. Once you finish those reviews, come and join us as we dive into book 3, Coming Home. It has been 5 days since Scout left from Parker's apartment. Yes, we are now doing Scout. She's back to being called Scout. And she goes to work. She's got a bag that she took and she sleeps on that bag in the park. She cleans up at a McDonald's restroom, and that has been her life for the past 5 days. However, she's decided she is going to change her life. And she is on her way to Patras Industries to ask for a loan from Lucian. So she goes up with her clothes from Clemens. Seth sees her, the assistant. He doesn't even recognize her because she looks a lot younger when she's not all dolled up. And when she says what her name is, she says Evelyn because, that's the name he knows her by. He tells Lucian. Lucian, of course, is at the door in a heartbeat. So she goes in, and there's all this tension. She, of course, is still hurt by what happened, and she's got a lot of thoughts, okay? But this is her request. She wants him to give her a $35,000 loan. She's not going to tell him what it's for. He says, you've got $200,000 in your account. Why do you need $35,000? She said the $2,000 was earned on her back, and she wants a loan, and she wants to pay it back with interest. Here's my thing. You could do that with the $200,000 that's in your account. You could take $35,000 and you could make that a loan and you could pay it back. You wouldn't need to go to him. You see what I'm saying? That does not make sense. That is your way of going to him and keeping a line to him. Because if you never spend the money, there's nothing for you all to talk about, right? If you take the money and you pay it back, you've got to have some type of possible interaction with him. There's still a link. So it's just kind of like she's saying this is something she needs to do because this makes her feel like, we're doing it above board, right? If we make it a loan, then it doesn't have anything to do with their relationship. But technically it still does, because no bank would just give her $35,000. She has no form of collateral, So again, you're still doing things that are outside of how things are normally done, is my whole point. And we're kind of using this as an excuse for you to stay in his life. My thing is just admit that, just admit it. He wants to know the reason for the money. She doesn't want to tell him. He lets her know, if you're trying to do this the way you would with the bank, you do have to let them know what the money's for, And so we also find out she's we know she's not dumb. She has difficulty reading, things like that, but she's not a dumb person by any means. So she knows the fact that he was able to open up that bank account for that $200,000, that he had to have gotten her documents, right? Her social security, her ID. He's gotten that stuff for her. And so he gave them to her. He didn't try and keep them from her. And I think that's a good thing as well. I know he was more than likely holding on to those things. Again, we know he's trying to keep any type of link to her that he can. We know that about him. He doesn't fake that funk, right? We know. And him giving her this Let's be honest. There's a lot of freedom for her right now, right? She could now get a passport. She could go somewhere, and it would be incredibly difficult for him to find her, you know? So him giving this to her, I do feel like it's a really big deal. He didn't put up a fuss. It was just like, you want them? Here they go. So he gave her the check, but it's his only stipulation. Well, he had a couple. So he stated that, you know, she has to make the payments in person and she has to let him know where she's living. So she says, fine. Well, we know she's got to get a place to live first before she can tell him, because right now she is homeless. With the check, he tells her that's basically useless unless I verify that it's okay to cash it. So just to let you know, just because I'm giving you this check, like he could still say like no, and when they call to verify for the check. We know he's not going to do that to her, but he could. So she did ask him on the way out if he would still pay for her mother, and he said, I can't even believe you would ask me that. He's like, of course I would. Like, why would I not do that for you? You know? And I don't know. Everything he's done, I feel like she has, what's the word? She's made it, she's tainted it. I feel like she has made it to where everything he's ever done, like there was this motive behind it that was ill-gotten, right? Like there was this horrible reason why he did these things. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, you can't taint all of the memories. It's like you won't do that with your mom. I don't think she has a good memory of her mother. Maybe we'll get one in this book, okay? But these past two books, she doesn't even have a good memory of her mother. And yet she can make an excuse when it comes to her mother for everything. So I find that kind of, it's so backwards. But I think, again, you have a mother treats her bad. That's what she understands. And when someone treats her good, there's a motive behind that. You know? I hate that she's so warped, but I also understand why her mind is that way. Now, she left her Clemens badge on, and when she saw him looking at it, she tried to take it off, because she still won't let him know where she's working. Again, I don't know why the hell you would go up there with that shirt on or with that tag on, and if you don't want him to know where you're working. You know what I mean? So maybe she got it off in time. I don't know. We shall see. And she also asked him, please stop having people, I don't want anyone to follow me. When I leave out of here, just don't, just allow me to leave. And we'll see if he does it. So she leaves from there. She goes to the nearest bank, and she's never been in a bank before. Guy comes up to her, asks if he can help. She tells him what she's there for. She gives him the check. He has to get everything verified. She shows her documents. She's very protective of these documents. And she's like, you're going to give them back, right? He's like, yes, I just got to verify. All this great stuff. We come to find out Lucian is actually one of the trustees at this bank. So he, of course, came down personally to vouch for the check. She sees Dugan and she's pissed. But again, you had to know this was going to happen. She winds up getting $300 in cash. They tell her the funds will be available in about, I guess 2 days, the full amount, all of the funds. And her ID has Lucian's address on it. And so the guy tells her, you can always change it, with once you're able to provide proof of address and you have an updated ID. So she's leaving out. She walks past Dugan and says, bite me. Lucian's in the limo, and He doesn't say anything because she's like, I know you're in there. She takes off. They're following her, backing up traffic. He eventually winds up getting out because she had like turned down this one-way road, and he got out of the vehicle at that point to catch up to her. They have this whole blowout, and she's saying, please leave me alone. And he's like, yeah, you want me to leave you alone except for when it comes to money. And then she's like, don't try and put me in that category. But I'm just kind of like, but that's what you're doing. You know? She's like, it's a loan. I'm going to pay you back. And he, of course, wants to know, well, what is this loan for? She, of course, is not going to tell him. She brings up again about the fact that he gave her away. She can't get past it. It's a betrayal that she'll never forgive. She's like, she's never going to forgive Parker either for what he did to her. And so he's starting to relinquish because it seems like the more he's after her, the harder she fights. But internally, we find out that it feels like he's about to stop. And in her head, it's like, please don't stop. And see, that's the problem when it comes to certain things like that. It's like you're telling this person this, but in your head, it's not what you really want. And I get if it's like a bad situation and sometimes you got to override, you know what I mean? What you really want, you have to override that, and I get it. But in her case, it's because she just got all these fucked up, thought processes when it comes to life. He's telling her how, he can't sleep at night. He's tortured. He's telling her, he can't live without her. I just can't let you go. And she's saying, she doesn't want anything to do with him. So he winds up agreeing to, like, okay, I'll leave you alone. Just allow me to take you to where you're staying. It's a place called the Slumberland Motel. And he, of course, is like, are you serious? And she's like, if you can't take me there, then I'm not going with you. So he agrees, fine, I'll take you there. They get to the place, the motel, and before she gets out, he kisses her. He tells her he's never going to stop fighting for them or whatever. Gets out, and she, of course, has those thoughts. I want him to go away, but I don't know if I can handle it. Especially the thought of him being with somebody else is just too painful for her to even think about. Right? So, again, if you keep doing this to someone, eventually, I hear what he's saying, like he's never going to let go, all this type of stuff. But if he keeps being met with the opposition of you basically letting him know, like, there's no hope, I, ugh, I don't know. I don't know if she can handle him really letting go. I don't think she can. Like, it's easy to sit up there and say, oh, I don't want you to follow me. I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to do that. When you know the person's going to keep doing it, So you can have those other thoughts of, I don't really want, you can have those thoughts, but you don't really have to live that life because they're going to keep coming for you. But we'll see if he actually gives up. I don't know. He might really just feel like there's no point. We'll see. Scout spent most of the night practicing her writing, trying to write a list of what she needed to do. And I'm going to insert the list right here because it was just so sad. I was just like, poor baby. After that, she spent most of the night kind of up because she just really couldn't rest. So when 7 a.m. hit, she's starving. She goes to a nearby diner. She orders some French toast and bacon. She gets a paper that was left there by a trucker And I'm like, I don't know what she gonna see. I mean, she can't read that well, you know. So there was a woman there named a waitress named Barbara, and she came over and gave her a piece of chocolate cake. Yes, chocolate cake in the morning. And the woman was just like, it just kind of seemed like you could use it. Um, Seems like you're having probably men troubles or whatever it is. And Barbara was also very helpful to her because she kind of could recognize clearly this girl was having a hard time reading this paper. And she told her she was looking for an apartment. And so she took her phone, because remember, she doesn't have a phone. She took the phone at the diner, and she kind of started making some calls for her. And she got her an appointment at 2 p.m. for this little efficiency. And it wasn't too far from where she works, because she told the woman, you know, she works at Clemens Market. So I think it was like 650 the efficiency. So appointment set up. She gave the woman an extra tip, and she met up later on that day with this guy named, I think his name was Mr. Snyder. He showed her the place. He said, you know, we just want first and last or something like that. And it was like $1,300. She wrote a check, but then she couldn't fill out the rest of the check. And the guy asked, "You special?" And she said, "No, I hurt my hand." And he said, "Oh, okay." So he filled out the rest. He told her all she had to do was write her name. She did that. Hopefully this ain't no tricky situation for her by doing that. We shall see. But I mean, again, it's so bad because the basics that she needs to start this new life, it's, you know, yes, this kind of may have worked out, but you can see how certain things are difficult, you know, like signing your name. It can be difficult. So this is going to be her place, and she calls it home. She's got her keys. And for her, again, if you've never had anything, this is a huge deal, which is crazy, being where she was staying for a period of time with Lucian, but that wasn't hers, you know. And this, she feels like it's hers. I don't see how, because it's still Lucian's money. But for her, because the stipulation says it's a loan and it's going to be paid back, it feels like this thing she's accomplished. She opens the refrigerator. It's cold. The freezer's cold. Running water in the bathroom. Everything's clear. It's a dream for her. Um, and she's happy. Well, she needs a mattress. So she goes to a mattress store that is actually close to Clemens Market. And the guy was trying to like upsell her on stuff, but all she wanted was a small bed for one person. She got the springs and stuff like that, because he had to explain those things to her because she didn't understand it. Because you got to remember, she's never had a bed. She's never had any of these things. And so thankfully, this is a day, Thursday, that they deliver. And so they're like, you just need to be home between 5 and 7. She's like, fine, that'll work. She went to some thrift stores, got blankets, different things. And the bed came. She got everything ready, and she drifted off to sleep. And she went to bed thinking about the burlesque show that he had taken her to. And then the next morning she woke up, and her thing is, the hardest thing about getting someone out of your mind is that it's they're stuck there, right? Like, that's really difficult to get someone out of your brain. It really is. Scout goes to work. She gets called into the back by the boss, the guy, Gerard guy, and he tells her there's an issue with her paperwork. Well, her social security number, they found out, belongs to a dead man. And so she's like, "Oh, I just probably gave you the wrong number." And she gave him her card, and the guy's like, "This is nothing like what you put down." And she's like, "Maybe I just probably got it confused with another number for something else." So then the guy, after that, then he tried to ask her out for lunch. She's like, "No, I bought my lunch today." So then after work, she comes out and she hears Scout. It's Parker. So she's walking away. She didn't go up near him or anything. She's going towards home. He catches up to her. They have a little blow up. She's telling him, basically stay the fuck away from me. She doesn't want anything to do with him. He's all black and bruised, and she's like, I don't even care. And he's like, Lucian did this to me. I'm trying to show you he's not safe. So I'm like, so he's still playing fucking games, you know? Like, Lucian might have beat his ass. I'm not gonna negate that. But it's not because he's not a safe person. He beat your ass because of what happened. You know why you got your ass beat, you know? But you're trying to play on her like, if he did this to me, he'll do this to you. You know what I mean? And you know that's not what it is. So you still playing the game. So you haven't learned anything. So he blurts out that he loves her. She's like, don't say that to me anymore. You know? What you did does not show love. You know? She's like, why couldn't we just remain friends? Why was that not enough for you? You know? She just went in on him and I loved it. So she walks away from him. She gets to her place, her building, and she sees this, drug deal going on. She tries to avoid these guys. They, of course, see her. They come up, they trap her. She winds up beating their ass. So basically, one of them, like, grabbed her. She kicked him in the nuts. She did something to the other one, and she screamed bloody murder. And the guy that works in the office, Elliot, and his wife, I forget her name. It'll come to me probably later. But Elliot comes out. She's got both of the guys on the ground. And Elliot calls the police. The police get there. And she's not comfortable talking to the police. Because homeless people, don't have the most trust for them, okay? And her mom had always taught her, if you ever go to the police, then they're going to take you away from me. And because of that, they'll take you away from me and I'll never see you again. So because of that being like, that's been implanted into her mind, said to her over and over again, there's a distrust. And I'm quite sure she's seen some things the police do to homeless people, and it doesn't help the situation. But there's that fear and distrust of the police for her. And so, at first, she thought about calling Lucian. She doesn't know his number, but she was going to tell them to call Patras Industries. But she thought, like, no, I've got to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet, So she was able to tell the police officer what happened. She goes up to her place and she falls asleep. 5 o'clock in the morning, she hears some ruckus. She goes downstairs. It's fucking Lucian, okay? He is freaking out because he read in the paper about her attack. So based on the information that was given, there was a quote from the guy Elliot, and he was able to figure out where she was living. He was horrified that something could have happened to her. And he, of course, was like, why didn't you call me? She's like, I have to be able to stand up on my own. And he says, that's what worries me, is that you're not going to need me anymore, and I need you to need me. And so she made some comment about the fact that, she has to be strong. She just can't be a weak individual anymore. And he was just like, is that how you think I see you? He's like, you're the strongest person I've ever met. I don't know anyone stronger than you. And so this is confusing her because, again, she's implanted these thoughts, to herself that he doesn't really care about her and all these other things. And now she can't decipher what's real and what's the bullshit that she told herself, And she asked him, she's like, do you want to come up for coffee? And so he calls Dugan and lets him know, I'll let you know when I need a ride. So Lucian comes up. He can barely fit. It's a, small, tiny little efficiency. And so she sees his face and she doesn't want to lecture about why she has this place, right? She starts making the coffee. She's got these little teacups. She tells him he can sit on their bed because she ain't got no furniture yet. And he wants her to sit down next to him. She doesn't really want to, but girl, well, she gonna sit on the floor. She lets him know that, no, let me go back. He tells her how much he loves her and all this type of shit. And he lets her know, like, the reason I made the deal because I was desperate to find you. And she says she understands that, but the problem is she cannot get over the fact that he didn't trust her enough to tell her what was happening. And that's the part that she can't let go of. That's the part that makes her feel like you gave me away. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. He then tells her that, what did he tell her? He was telling her about all the underhanded stuff that Parker had done. And we find out some more stuff Parker did. So remember when she called him, Lucian, he was in Paris. She called him and the phone went to voicemail. Well, reception I guess was bad where he was, and he saw where she called, and he called her back. And clearly what happened was Parker, she was in the shower when he called her back, and Parker saw it and dumped the phone in water. And she realizes Parker was the one that did it, because when they kept telling her it's water, she's like, water never touches my phone. Now she realizes he did that. So it makes her even more upset because that was her lifeline to Lucian. But again, that also shows you don't really want to cut off all dealings with Lucian. So then he also, he told her about, the prostitute, all that type of stuff. And she just kind of lets him know, don't worry about him. Like, I have no plans of ever being near him again. Like, I want nothing to do with him. But he makes sure he tells her everything. He tells her about how he had given Parker a job as a bellhop. She was like, I knew I saw him one day. And then how Slade had given him another job so he could get faster to getting her. To me, that still shows he wasn't trying to give you, he was trying to figure out a way to be a man of his word, but at the same time put in enough hiccups to where he never had to let her go. And how she's not seeing that, I don't understand. It's like you can't see that, but yet you keep thinking that someday your mother will love you. You know what I mean? That, I think that it just doesn't make sense to me. And so he's telling her that he can't function at work. It's become too much for him. And he did tell her that he was proud of her for getting her own space. He thought she was going to get like a down payment on a penthouse, but he realized clearly all she wanted was just a little space in the world that was hers. And I do understand it to an extent, because if you've never had anything, that just to have a little something means the world to her. I get it. And I also think her living with him, you got to think she went from eating at a shelter, trying to find food, to access to anything in the world she wanted. It's almost like it was too much to take in. You know, think about if you starved yourself for a few days and then you try and eat this huge meal. You can't eat it all. It's too much. So I kind of feel like that's what, for her, living in the penthouse, having that life, it just felt like it was just too much for her to. I think she needs to process things in like small doses, and this little space, it's enough for her right now. We fast forward, it's been about a week since he's been at her place. He sent a phone. She's like, God damn it, I told him not to send a phone. He just does not listen. But at the same time, She's also happy because she has his number. She still has that line of communication with him. So she goes to work. She sees a magazine, like one of those gossip ones. And in the picture, he's there with this beautiful blonde woman. So she turns off her light. She goes and picks up the magazine. But she can't make out too much. She can make out Lucian's name. Not Nate, Nick comes up, her co-worker that she's cool with, and she's like, "Can you read this for me?" And he's like, "Why can't you read it?" And she's like, "I don't read the best." Now, that girl wanted that read for her to admit that fast that she couldn't read. Now, she kind of said it with the other woman, the waitress at the diner, but that's because that woman said to her, like, "I noticed you've had this all this time," like, or she could make out the fact that there was some issues. But for her to say this to him, that girl wanted to know what the hell that shit said. So he reads it to her, and I also like that he didn't make her feel bad. He didn't joke. He didn't make her feel bad at all. He just read it. So basically, who this is, it's a woman named Nicole Nottingham. She's the heir to some cosmetics company, and she's apparently been seen out with Lucian. Now, they used to date before, and it seems as if they're picking things back up. So the article talked about the woman, and how it also talked about how there was this brunette he had been with, but we haven't seen her in a while, that type of thing. It also goes on to detail that there's going to be this Rose Bowl event fundraiser that's like $500 a plate. It's open to the public. And she decides right then and there and asks Nick, "You want to go?" He's like, "It's $500 a plate." She says, "I got it. And if you need to rent a tux, I got that too." And so she gets dolled up. He gets his, tux. He looks great. He's got a big truck. And they're going to this event. And Nick had asked her, like, "Do you know him?" And she's like, "We have history. And so they go in. She's drinking champagne. She's drinking a little too fast. She's had like 2 glasses in less than like 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to wind up well. So anyway, she has to go pee. She sees him before she goes, and seeing him just made her drink more. So she goes to Tinkle, and when she came out, Lucian was there. He, of course, says, "What are you doing here?" And she says, "I came for the event." He's like, "You don't even know what it's for." She's like, "Yes, I do." They go back and forth. She, of course, says, when he wants to know who she's there with, she's like, "You're here with a woman, X, Y, and Z." But this is my point of why I kept saying, you keep pushing him and you keep pushing him, and eventually he's going to go away. And now you done spent all this money to come out to this event because you done seen a picture of him with another woman. So she's all upset. Here's the thing. I don't feel bad for her. I don't even sympathize with her, because you shouldn't have been pushing him away. You shouldn't have been fucking doing it, because now it's like you told him to move on, to forget about you. There was no chance that you were going to change your mind. And now here you are popping up at an event because you clearly are here to see who he's with. So now you playing fucking games. And my thing is, just tell him, "I'm confused and I need time." That's it. "I'm confused and I need time." He would give you time. Probably wouldn't. I'm not going to say he would, not bother you, because he's still going to bother you. I mean, you just got to be honest. He's still going to bother you. But do you really think he would go and try and date other women? No, he's not going to do that. Because you're just saying you need time because you need to process stuff, and that's that. But you said the complete opposite, and she wanted to sound convincing. She wanted to sound convincing, and she was. And now she's scared. So anyway, she goes back out. She eats. She drinks more. Lucian comes over and he asks for a dance, and he had the band play One Republic's "Come Home," and or "Coming Home." It's either "Come Home" or "Coming Home." And she goes back to drinking and eating, and then she starts drinking tequila. And I'm like, girl, she gonna get fucked up. So she goes back to the bathroom, and of course, this time the Nicole bitch pops up. And she went off on Nicole because the woman tried her. She basically let her know that she's looked into her past. She knows her mom's a junkie, all this type of shit. And she even called her scout. So that's when she went off. And she basically let her know the fact that you're talking to me and you're trying to make sure I go away means you know you don't have him. And she goes, I have his heart and you know it. And basically, if you knew you had him, you would have no reason to be trying to ward off somebody else. Because wouldn't that be his job? Right? Because if he's with you, he doesn't want anyone else, he should make that perfectly clear to other women that approach him, correct? Should be no issue. Here's the problem. You already know he done came and looked for her. Because trust me, the minute he walked off, she saw. Because if she's done research on the woman, she knew who that heifer was the minute she walked in. And so you see he's probably frazzled. He done danced with her. You're scared. So now you're going to try and make her feel less than to get her to go away because I can't stop him. But if I can get her to go away, I got a shot. After she leaves from that conversation, she decides they think I'm trash. I'm gonna act like trash. And so there's an up tempo song playing. She grabs Nick and she doesn't really, I mean, she had those dancing lessons at Lucian's place, but that's about all she knows. But she figures dancing is like fucking, and so her and Nick dance like they fucking, and it's embarrassing. Other people are not dancing like that, and it's insane. She felt bad, but it's like you keep doing stuff based off an emotion that you can't understand, and then you keep making these rash decisions. You know what I mean? So then she sees Nicole talking to someone with a clipboard and a headset, and she doesn't want to get thrown out by security to even further embarrass. So her and Mike leave out, and Nicole comes out. Lucian's out there, and Nicole is like, I'm glad they're taking out the trash. Lucian's like, don't you talk to her like that. And then she gets in the limo. He shuts the door and tells Dugan, take her home. And then he looks to the Mike dude and he tells Mike, I'll get Evelyn home. And Mike is like, Ev, is that okay? And she's like, it's fine. So then Mike leaves, but before he leaves, he does tell her he had a great time. So he hails a cab, they get in, and he agrees for her to come back to his place. And then while they're in the vehicle, she did ask him if he'd slept with Nicole. And he said, I haven't touched her, X, Y, and Z. She's not my type. He's like, I just want you. And then, of course, he asks questions about Mike. She's like, I just work with him. He's not my type. So they did have a little conversation in the car. So she wakes up the next morning, freaks out because she realizes she's not in her bed. She's in Lucian's. And so she winds up falling because she wrapped herself up in a comforter, and she freaked out because she was naked. And he let her know they didn't do anything. He gave her pills for her headache, some water. He ordered breakfast. He gave her some jeans and a t-shirt, which made her realize he really was expecting her to come back. But after she didn't want to sit next to him on the couch, they sat at the table, and like everything comes out. So she was trying to lie, but he wanted to know, why did you come? Why did you come when you told me to move on? And he declares to her, he'll make a he'll bargain with her. And he lets her know, listen, when I asked you to marry me, it was out of urgency because I did not want you to go to Parker. And she starts to realize she's making him suffer for no reason. She says this is a self-inflicted penance that she's done of, you're not supposed to have happiness. You're not supposed to have love. Love is awful because you love your mother and your mother treats you like trash. So that's what this is. She's been telling her stuff this bullshit and it's not fucking true. So he tells her how much he loves her and he can't live without her. She finally gives in. He kisses her, picks her up, takes her to the bed, fingers her until she comes. She sucks him off until he comes, and then he fucks her until she comes again. We then switch to Lucian's POV. He is beyond happy right now because he really was terrified that he wasn't going to get her. He wants to get the ring and put it on her finger, but he knows if he does that, it'll scare her away. We find out that this really big deal that he had been working on, it's falling through. That's bothering him a lot because a lot of man hours have been put into this deal. It's this green energy company, and he hasn't been as focused on work, so hopefully he can get his ass together. So she wakes up, they have a talk while they're in the bath, and she finally tells him what happened with Hughes. And she kind of just says, he kissed her, and at first it felt, wrong, but she needed to feel something other than the gut-wrenching hurt that she felt because Lucian left her. And she said for a moment it did feel good, and then it set in. It felt like I was cheating on you, and they didn't fuck. That didn't happen, and so he winds up taking her anally. Lucian does, and for him it was like now he owns every part of her, right? Done came in her mouth, done came in her pussy, coming in her ass. So after that, they're hungry, and he was like, I'll take you to dinner. And while she was getting ready, Dugan told him paparazzi's outside. And so Lucian's like, just give them a quote, they'll go away. Well, they go downstairs, and they are swarmed by paparazzi. They're yelling questions saying, did you meet when she was of age? And did you all meet at a shelter? Is your mother on drugs? Like, they just threw everything out there. And he drags her through the crowd, gets her into the limo. And then, of course, when he looks at her face, it's just white. Because this was her worst fear, that people were going to find out about her past. She, of course, is panicking. He's trying to soothe her. She was honest. She said, I'm afraid this is going to mess you up. I'm going to embarrass you. He told her, you can never embarrass me. He's like, I'm not ashamed of you or your past. But he was going to get to the bottom of it. They think it's the Nottingham girl. I think it might be because him sending her away clearly let her know this is done. It could be her. It could also be Hughes. It could be Parker Hughes. He's a possibility. I don't know. I don't think Slade is one of the people. I think it's either Nottingham or Parker Hughes, one of those two. So then he calls his sister and tells her to get dinner ready. They're going to come to her place. They get there. She's a little pissed because she's like, I don't work for you. And he put it on Evelyn. He's like, well, Evelyn was hungry. She's like, don't put it on me. So eventually they tell the sister what happened. She, of course, was shocked. She had no idea any of this stuff about Evelyn. And she tells her, don't worry about it. Your past doesn't define you. All the same things that Lucian said to her in the limo, And that did make her happy. And it made him happy as well because, his sister is one of those people. Like, she knows they're wealthy, but she holds a little disdain for the wealth. But at the same time, she does understand the magnitude of power that they have. And like when Evelyn was like, well, I'm just worried, like, what if people don't want to do business with him? She's like, if they don't do business with us, who are they going to do business with? That was kind of weird for him to hear her say, because she doesn't really like to talk about the business, but she knows the force that they are. She understands. But after the dinner, it went well because they had a great time, Evelyn and Isadora, ragging on the Nottingham girl. So apparently the Nottingham chick, Isadora was like, if you wave at her, she'll think it's an engagement. I was like, oh my gosh. So she's a desperate person. So I'm going to lean more towards it was her, because she realizes that's never going to happen now. She's not going to get that engagement. She's not going to be with Lucian. So I think it's pretty safe to say it was her. So they have great conversation after that. They'll issue a statement on Evelyn's behalf when she's comfortable. But it turned out to be a really good evening, and it took Evelyn's mind off of what was going on. So that was good. They leave from Isadora's and get into a little bit of an argument because she's not going back to his hotel, the penthouse. She's like, I have an apartment. Take me to my apartment. He, of course, has a fit. He knows he sounds like a petulant child, but he feels like he just got her back and she's pulling away from him. And he's just not okay with that. And so she's like, you got to understand, we can't go back to the way things were before. This is something that I need to do. I've got to work in the morning. He's like, you still won't even tell me where you work. Nope, not now. Just give me some time. So eventually he concedes. He takes her to the apartment, walks her up. They start kissing, getting all hot and heavy. And he knew how to get her back. So he got her all ready to come, and then he stopped. And he's like, see you on Tuesday. And she just threw a shoe at him because she knew that he was doing that, because the rule is she can't come without his command. So so later that night, he gets a call from her. She had a bad dream and couldn't go back to sleep, and she didn't want to tell him at first, but eventually she does tell him what the dream was. And it was like a memory, but it was something that happened to her when she was 8, but it was like it was happening to her as an adult. And basically, her mom was tricking off with guys, and her mom would make her go and buy the drugs. And she saw a cop, and she wanted so bad to go and tell the cop, but she knew if she went to that cop that it meant she'd never see her mom again. And so she didn't do it. And he's just thinking to himself, like, damn, the choices that she had to make as a kid is just absolutely insane. So he tries to get out of her what her plan is. She will not relinquish any information. He finally gets her to at least tell him, will you at least tell me when you're ready? And she says, okay, when I'm ready to tell you what I'm trying to do, I'll let you know. And he says, well, that's good enough. I can live with that. Lucian's got this deal hovering over him. It appears as if someone else is in the game, right? They have put on the table everything that this company wants, and they're still not signing. So he knows someone's gotten in their ear, and he's trying to figure it out. He gets a text from Dugan that says, found it, and he found out where Evelyn works. So he leaves the job, and he acts like he's shopping at the market, gets some flowers and some cookies that remind him of his mom. And he sees her coming out of the back stock room. And she, of course, is shocked to see him. But she's not as mad as he thought she would be, because I think she kind of knew he wasn't going to give up trying to find out where she worked. So then she had to go back in with the manager. And after, he's like, well, why are you going back in with the manager? Like, why? You know what I mean? And she's like, oh, he just wants to go over some stuff, X, Y, and Z. So he keeps an eye. He leaves from over there, but he keeps an eye on. So he sees her leave out of the back, and she looks pissed. And so he goes up to the Gerard guy and lets him know that he's friends with the Clemens, the people that own this place. And he would hate to have to let them know of any inappropriateness that's going on. Scared the guy shitless. And hopefully he'll leave her alone. He's going to dinner, Lucian is, with the guys from LabX, and Jamie's gonna come, and Tony wants to come along because she feels like he's not taking her because he's bringing some other woman. Well, she comes along, Evelyn's not there, and she's shocked, and she was bored, but she didn't show her ass like she normally would at a business meeting. So they left, and Lucian leaves, goes to Evelyn's place, and sees a guy with a satchel coming out, and he of course has Dugan follow the guy, and he goes upstairs, and she's got papers across her table, and she's now gotten a table and two chairs, and she's put the paperwork into the cabinet, and he feels some type of way, but as you know, he did tell her when she was ready he would, he let her tell him when she was ready. He did tell her that. But some guy just left here, and that's pissing him off. So he stayed the night, and he thought about going through the paperwork, but he didn't do it. Which I thought was funny, but I'm shocked he didn't do it. But he didn't. And the next day, he let Dugan know he wanted a full workup on that guy. Dugan's like already working on it. He calls Slade, and because he's thinking Slade might be the person that's trying to ruin this deal for him. Slade tells him it's not me, and he does apologize to him. He says, he how do I say it? It's like he was admitting to wrongdoing, but yet trying to justify it. So he basically just said, "I'm sorry that the part that I played in what happened." That's his apology. And for Lucian, it's just too little, too late. It's just there's nothing left, He's starting to think about Parker Hughes. Like, it couldn't be him because he hasn't moved up that far. But again, you underestimated him before. I don't know why the fuck you doing it again. So we'll see if he is the one that's behind it. I mean, I just don't know. I just won't put it past him. Because anybody that's willing to, I just think I can't get over that. Anybody that can sit up there, know their friend is dying, not, oh, they're just upset, or they're just a little cold. She was near death, and he used that as an opportunity to level himself up. That type of thinking, you cannot put anything past somebody that thinks that way. So I'm like, you need to look further into Parker Hughes, because he's nothing to look past. He really isn't. He gets a message from Dugan. Dugan's outside of her apartment, and Dugan's like, he's back. Guy with the satchel. So then we switch back to Evelyn's POV, and she's in there with her tutor. His name is Jason, and there's a knock on her door. She looks out. She sees Lucian. They have this whole back and forth. She goes outside to talk to him, and he just kind of said, this isn't fair. He's like, when you thought something was going on with me and someone else, you came to the event because of your jealousy, but then you don't seem to understand what I feel when there's a man in your apartment, So she admitted to him that she was trying to get her GED, and he felt kind of stupid because, he did wonder if something was going on. And he told her how proud he was of her and how she would succeed. He knew she would. And it shocked her because she realizes she was actually nervous of his reaction. And again, his man has never said anything to like disappoint her like that. Like, he's never been like beat down on her verbally with any of her dreams. He's always told her she can do anything she wants. But again, I guess when you have a mother that has said the type of traumatic, awful things your whole life, it's just, she's trained, unfortunately, to have that doubt in people. And so it sucks, but it is what it is. I'm glad some of this stuff is just starting to get through to her, that this man really does love her. He really does care. He really will do any and everything in the world for her. You know, it's starting to seep through. He did say to her, would she allow him to pay for her education? He says, I know that you wanted to pay for it. He's like, but it would be my honor to do something for you that you actually really want. And he says, you don't have to decide right now. I just want you to think about it. And so she leaves. She leaves from there. She goes to work, and while she's at the register, she's in between customers. She has like her workbooks, and of course they're like very lower level, you know, probably second, first grade level. And so this woman comes up and is like, oh, do you have any children? And she says yes, because she didn't want to admit that those workbooks were for her. The woman says, girl or boy? And she says, girl. And the woman says, how old? She says 6. And the woman says, what's her name? And I'm like, girl, you don't feel like this is odd? All these fucking questions? So she says the her child's name is Pearl. And then guess what? The woman starts taking pictures of her. And then the woman had all this shit, all these groceries, and she's like, oh, I don't need it anymore, and left. So she ran after the woman, and the boss guy, Gerard, comes out, and he's pissed off at her because he's like, you don't chase after customers. So he called her back to the office. He switches up on her, tells her they're going to switch her schedule to the evenings, and she's like, well, that doesn't work for me. I can't do that. He's like, well, you just started, and you have to be flexible. You're still a newbie. And she's like, well, that's not going to work. And then he switches it, and he tried to ask her out again. And she's like, she lost it. She's like, why do you keep asking me out? She's like, I've told you no repeatedly, and you keep doing it. Are you asking anybody else out? And she's like, you know what? I do not need this. I quit. And so she went to her register, got her little workbooks, and Nick was like, what's going on? And she's like, I'm just tired of this. And she said what happened. Nick was like, you know, you can, you know, file harassment charges. You can, you know, go to HR about this. And she's like, no, I'm just tired of this. You know, I don't need to waste my time with this anymore. I'm tired of this. And so Nick was like hoping they can remain friends. He's like, I got a new girlfriend. I want you to meet her. And he's like, hopefully, you know, we can have lunch with you and your gazillionaire. And they'll, you know, they can be friends. And I like Nick, and Nick is a real friend. There's no underlying bullshit. He makes her laugh. They have a good time together. And it's like she realizes even with Parker, it was never this level of comfort, you know? And so I like that. And I'm glad Nick, she found him. I hope he stays in her life. I really do. She leaves from there and goes to like a little park, sits on a bench, and she thinks about the story of the Wizard of Oz. And Parker had told her the story. At the very end, she got upset with it because she was like, oh my gosh, it was all fake. You know, it was just a regular man. All these people had all these hopes, you know, and it wasn't even real. So she was really upset by this story. And Parker's like, you know, it's fiction. And she said, I don't care. This is still messed up. So she decides to go and visit Pearl. She gets there. She felt so lost. She just started crying. And at first, her mother was okay. She, of course, was like, what's wrong? You know, tell me what's going on. And she just kind of said how everything in her life didn't make sense. And her mother started telling a story about, like, honestly, how she really came about. So who she thought was her father all this time was not her father. So Pearl had said, she used to have a nice apartment, running water, everything worked, and then someone came in and murdered him. And they did whatever they wanted to her. And she was born from that. So as she's telling the story, she's realizing the stuff isn't lining up. She asks what were my dad's eye color, and she says brown like mine. And remember, she's got like these blue near clear type of eyes, witch eyes. And so that freaked her out even more so, because now she knows she's a product of RAPE, right? And I honestly think the mother holds probably a hate for her because she's a reminder of that night. You know? Like, that's what happened. That's how she came to be. But yet, when the girl would try and leave, she wouldn't let her. So maybe she wanted that reminder. I don't know. I don't know. But it's sad. And the mother went from being nice to calling her names and making her feel like trash again. So she calls Lucian, tells him where she is, and he says, I'm coming. No judgment, no nothing. He's coming. And as, again, things are clicking in her head, he's honestly never done anything to make her believe that he wouldn't be there for her, you know? And I'm glad it's starting to sink in. I mean, it took long enough, but I knew it was going to take time with her because there's so much, you know, trauma that this girl has. But I'm just glad she's seeing, look how quickly he responds. He's always been this way. He's never made her wait and do all this type of stuff, you know? He's never done it. His love really has never been conditional. It just hasn't been. So he comes and gets her. She looks exhausted, and he's like, "You need to cancel your study appointment," you know. And she doesn't even argue because she's tired. And he tells her, "I'm gonna take you home." But when he got there, he wanted to talk. So when he says home, he says his home. He took her to his place. And he told her, "This isn't working for me." And she immediately thought he was finna break up with her. And he's like, "No, this living apart is what I'm talking about." You know? And they go back and forth. She lets him know she can't give up the apartment. Not yet. She's like, "I just got it. It's the first thing that's been mine. I'm not ready to give that up." And so he kind of wants 30 days of complete submission. Like, I don't know how the hell this is going to work. But anyway, he just wants to be able to show her how it could be if she gave over complete submission to him. Just to see how it would work. And she's thinking about it back and forth. We find out he bought Jamie's birthday's coming up, and Tony's going to throw him a surprise birthday party, but he's already bought him his gift. He's getting him a McLaren, a Spider, things like $250,000. And he's like, yeah, it's what he wants. And then he talks about the homes, like he's got like 8 homes around the world. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, just never do anything extravagant like that for me. I don't need that. But she does agree to the 30 days of saying yes. She went to sleep. He was dealing with stuff. Of course, she told him, when you get ready to come to bed, wake me up. And when he did, they had their nice hard fuck session. She took a shower. He got in. He told her suck him off. She did it. He told her he called Jason and they're going to have her study session in the boardroom on the 9th floor. He secured it for her until she doesn't need it anymore. He said that way you'll have more space because it's kind of cramped in her place. It's just a small table and it's not enough room for everything. But this conference room, she's got all the, space in the world. He made an appointment for her to get wax, told her to bring a book, so the time could go by quicker for her. Picked out her clothes. He picked out shorts. She's never worn shorts because it's never really something that has worked with her life of being on the streets. He even put flip-flops. Again, these are not conducive to the conditions of her lifestyle before. And she told him she was going to go back to her apartment, but then it was kind of like, well, what's the point? You really don't need anything. Everything you have is right here. And so she winds up saying, you know what, I'll just stay here. So she had her lesson with Jason, and he started her on texting small words. She really liked it. And he told her it's going to help you because if you spell something wrong, autocorrect is going to show you how it should be spelled, and that'll help you. So she, of course, sends her text to Lucian, and he sent some back that was a little too complicated, but he read it for her. Jason did. So it was like, okay, she's coming up. And then he texted her, take her clothes off. And so she just sent back, once she did it, off. Came inside, and he had her put on like this sexy maid outfit, doing the whole recreation of their original meet. And so then, they fucked a few times. It was great. I also forgot to mention that he also had her go and see her mother again because he felt like she needed to replace that memory from the last visit. So she went back, and it was much better. And he's going to try and not try, that's wrong. He's going to get the mom tested with like a behavioral specialist for the mental issues, because they know something's mental going on with her. And that made her feel a lot better as well, knowing that was going to happen. They're going to kind of get to the root of whatever mental issues that the mother's having. She gets her hair and makeup done for the event, which is going to be Jamie's surprise party. It's a speakeasy party. So this was super fun to her because she had heard of that before. So she was really excited. They get ready to go. They don't take the normal limo. They take like this older Mercedes, really going with the theme. They get to Tony's penthouse. It is decked out. It looks like a real speakeasy. It's really neat. And so he does tell, Lucian does tell her, like, okay, pace yourself. You can only have 3 drinks. And he tells her he's got a surprise for her once they get home. And so she's like, okay, she doesn't want to get drunk. She's going to take it easy. So Jamie comes in. He's surprised. He's shocked. She was looking for Lucian. She doesn't see him. And so she decides to act like she's going to go look for a restroom, but really she's going to see where he is. And she hears a conversation going on between Slade and Lucian. And so Slade just said, I get it now. I see that you love her. I'm sorry. My intentions weren't wrong at first, but it turned into something wrong, and I'm sorry about that. And Lucian basically let him know, like, you did something that almost made me lose her forever, and I'll never forgive you for it. So he storms out. She had like ducked away behind a curtain, and then she decided to go in and talk to Slade. And he apologized to her too, and then a bunch of truths come out. So here's the whole thing. Slade is actually in love with Lucian. Now, he cared for Monique, but Monique was just his connection to Lucian. And so when he saw that he had fallen in love with Evelyn, it was like he knew he was never going to have him that way again. Now, I don't know if they engage, like, because we've all seen porn. We've seen where there's a threesome and the guys never touch. I don't know if that was going on or if they were doing things to each other. I don't know. But it was enough that it just kind of felt, how you have people that they love a person, and if they can have them any kind of way, they'll accept that because at least they have that some form of that person. It kind of seems that's what's going on with Slade. And she just but she went off on him because she said she gets it because she loves him, But she said, but you don't get to do that, have him in your life again, because you also destroyed a friendship between me and Parker, by you coming in and trying to help him do some underhanded shit, it ruined that too. And so Lucian appears because apparently he went looking for her and couldn't find her, comes in that room and sees her with Slade, loses it, and he's like, you stay away from her. You don't ever talk to her again. And whisked her away. And they went to the country estate. Not much talking was going on. He tells her to go upstairs, tells her to lie on her back, gets the lube, puts it on her ass crack, and now she's starting to think, what if he's upset with Slade and now he wants to do anal? And so she screams out, no. And he's like, you're telling me no? And she's like, yeah. So of course it all comes out. We find out he had no idea that Slade felt that way about him. He's like, I'm not into men. We never fucked each other. So it does sound like they were just sharing her. Might have had some threesomes, but they never were like fucking each other. And so maybe for him, just being able to see Lucian intimately that way, like naked, it was enough for him. Lucian kind of felt like, why wouldn't he just tell me? But if he knows you're not into men, but he has all these strong feelings for you, do you really think he's going to say something to you? He's already terrified probably of you finding out, And I kind of wonder if the Monique girl knew, and that's why she was able to get a lot of stuff out of Slade, because she knew he was in love with him. I don't know if they ever, I don't remember reading anything that said anything like that, but I kind of wonder if maybe that's what happened. That's very plausible, especially if she was this selfish prick and wanted everything done her way. If you found a weakness, you're going to exploit it, So it's a possibility. But anyway, he kind of let her know, no, it's not that, nothing to do with that. He's like, when I take you that way, it's just your complete surrender to me and all that type of stuff or whatever. And so then after that, they were able to have their fun. They get back to the city. She's got a routine. She goes to her apartment maybe once a week, but it's starting to feel pointless. She gets there, there's nothing to do because her home is with Lucian. And so he was talking one day about the deal that he lost, and she knew that deal had meant a lot to him. And it was something dealing with green energy, and she starts thinking, she's like, where the hell have I heard about this before? And she remembers windmill energy. She remembers seeing books at Parker's apartment. And she's like, it's him. He's the one that undercut the deal. So she sneaks out, gets Dugan to take her to Parker's place. She confronts Parker, and he's like, it's just business. And she's like, no, it's not. This is payback. You're being upset because you couldn't get what you want. And then she was like, why wasn't my friendship enough? My friendship should have been enough for you, and it wasn't. And now you're taking it out on him, and it's just unacceptable. So then Lucian shows up. I thought he was going to spaz out, but unfortunately he's got some bad news. He's like, Evelyn Pearl's missing. She escaped. She left from the rehab, and no one can find her. So now she starts freaking out. Parker's like, I'll come help. Lucian's like, we don't need any more conditional help. And so he's like, I know the different places that she goes. I'm coming. So they go down, they get in the limo, and they go to different places, and they go to a drug dealer's house, which is this guy named Damien, which is where her mom would send her to go get the drugs. They gave the guy like $300. He admits that she came earlier, got her stuff, and left. And what's her name? Evelyn knows that her mom is somewhere close in a dark alley getting high, and she's terrified she's going to find her mother dead. That's the fear. That's been the fear her whole life. So then they try and keep her in the vehicle while Parker and Lucian are looking around, but she winds up getting out. She kicked Dugan in the damn nuts. She's like, I'm sorry, but I can't stay here. Sure enough, Her mom is dead. Done got high that one last time. I think the mom wanted to die. The mom wanted to die. She kept saying she wanted to go back and do it until that was it, you know? So she was holding on to the inevitable, wanted her mom to stay on longer for her, not realizing your mom was never going to live for you, baby. Ever. That just wasn't going to happen. Well, then there's a lot of decay in this place, and Lucian winds up falling through, and now he's sitting there looking lifeless, and she's about to spaz the fuck out. So they call an ambulance. They get there. She's terrified to go with Lucian because if she loses him, she will not. She can't face it. There's no way. Um, Parker tells her, "You've got to go with him. He needs you now." He told the people that she was his fiance, and he's like, "You got to go." So they're in the hospital, and he's not responding at first. He's breathing, but he's just not alert. He finally comes to, and he told the people, "No, she comes back with me." And he told him, he donates enough money here. Go get Dr. Sheffield, X, Y, and Z. She comes down. They take him for some X-rays, MRI. He's broken his arm, broken some ribs. He's fucked up. But they do the X-rays and MRIs to make sure there's no internal bleeding. And Dr. Sheffield told Evelyn, like, if there's internal bleeding, he's got to stay overnight, because they both don't like hospitals. So she hurt her ankle or something. She winds up just crying to Dr. Sheffield, saying, "Why wasn't I enough? Why was my mother more concerned with drugs than with me?" She's like, "I almost lost him because of her." And I know this is gonna sound harsh as fuck, but yeah, that's what happened. He almost died looking for the person that wanted to die. That's the truth. You know, her destiny and what her mom wanted to do was to die by heroin. The mom did not want to be clean. She didn't want that. She liked being high, and she wanted to do it until she died. That's what she wanted. And unfortunately, our girl couldn't accept it and put herself through more torture than she should have had to gone through. Um, but I mean, the woman needed to be. I mean, she wasn't at peace. She was miserable at that rehab. You know, you were keeping her there thinking that, she's alive, she's clean, but she didn't want to be clean. So that means it's not going to last, you know? So it is what it is. We find out that Dr. Sheffield is Jamie's sister. And she had asked her, like, what was the relationship between her and Lucian. And she's like, "I figured you would have asked me that before." She's like, "But no, I've known him since they were kids. Like, it's nothing like that." So they go back to the penthouse. They fucked up. They got to help each other take their clothes off. They fall asleep for what felt like days. Poor thing wakes up crying, goes back to sleep. She has nightmares. The ones that really made her cry were the ones where she couldn't save Lucian. And then in her mind, she starts thinking, "I'm a bad daughter." But again, this is something that's been trained. She's been hearing this her whole life, you know. Lots of gifts are sent over. Lots of condolence cards, flowers are sent. You know, everyone that she knows, and she realizes she really does have friends. She really does. These people really do care about her. And the things that were written in cursive, she read them. I'm lying. That was so wrong. Our boy Lucian read them to her, and that made her happy just to hear all those things. Now, she did freak out because her whole life has been attached to her mom, right? Her mom has been an anchor, right? I can't leave. I can't go here. I can't do anything because I can't leave my mother. Well, now there's no anchor. There's nothing holding you back. What do you do now? Your whole life has been trying to save your mother. But he lets her know you are more than that. And She he asked her what did she want to do, and she said she'd never been to the ocean, and he says, well, after the funeral, we're gonna get you to the ocean. She starts laughing hysterically, but I think again she's just going through different emotions because a lot of things are going through her mind right now, and she'll figure out her purpose. But I do feel bad for her because her life has been tied to that horrible mother. They have the funeral at the estate outside of Folsom, and it's the first time she's seen her mother look like she's at peace. She gets buried in the backyard next to his mom, further out. It's a huge estate. Um, I think Parker, Lucian, Slade, Jamie, I want to say Nick too, and even Dugan, they all carried her mother to her final resting place. After the funeral, he took her to Florida, well, an island off of Florida, and she finally got to put her feet in the ocean, in the sand. She loved it. Um, from there, they went to Ireland. She did karaoke, sang the Gilligan's Isle song because that's the one she knows. They went from there, then they went to England, and then to Paris at her request because she wanted to meet his father. At first, he didn't want to do it, but he caved. Um, and the first thing the father said to her was like, "Are you after my son's money?" She read him like a nice nasty read, and she's like, "I don't want anything from him." She got the father's respect real quick. The father loved her. They were about to leave out that night, and she wanted them to try and attempt to fix it because this affects Lucian. Their relationship not being okay, it affects him, and he doesn't like to admit it, but it does. And so, the dad wanted to take them out to dinner. He agreed, and she had a little conversation with Tibet, but Tibet is like a nice, nasty bitch. Like, she'll act like she doesn't mean any harm when she says like some aggressive shit, but it's like, but then she'll be sweet with it. It's real crazy. But anyway, they were mesmerized with the fact that Evelyn and Christos got along so well, you know? And so later on that night, Lucian told her, like, the only reason why he didn't stop the dad from flirting with her is because it was pissing off Tibet. And she's like, I don't think he was doing that. She's like, but anyway, I belong to you anyway. So then they have a nice hard fuck. The next morning, the dad, of course, I hope you return soon. And she's like, you can always come to Folsom. And he said if we reach that point, he'll be there. And so it was a good trip. The flying does freak her out. She had never been on a plane, and so she starts off with a PJ, but she was terrified because to her it just didn't make sense that this huge ass thing can remain in the air. So it was a little rough at first, but then after that, it got to be okay. They left from Paris, went to New York, stayed at his brownstone, and she kind of asked him like, where do you consider your home? And he realizes of all the places, she's inspired. She's given him so many memories from this trip that Folsom has been like his main home, but when she wasn't there, it was like a torture chamber to him. And so he just says, wherever you are, you're home, you know? And I thought that was really sweet. And she winds up writing down "Marry Me." He had tears in his eyes because he had the ring in his pocket and he just didn't know when the right time would be to give it to her. So it worked out perfectly. And he said some really sweet things to her and slid it on her finger. Perfect fit. They got married 6 months later in the Hamptons. His father Christos walked her down the aisle. People are suspecting she's gonna have a kid soon. They don't know. It's just a gossip mag. She's able to read now. She's at their estate outside of Folsom, and she's at her mother's grave, just kind of talking to her. And she decides she's ready to maybe start having kids. She doesn't have the apartment anymore. She gave him the keys to that before they got married. That was her gift to him. And she'll never be like a complete submissive, like in public and all that type of stuff. Like whatever you say, I do. Um, she shouldn't have to be. But where she is submissive in those areas, she'll do it and she's fine with that. And I like that. They genuinely do love each other. So it was beautiful. Um, when they she was done talking to her mom, and she saw his car pull up, and so she ran in the house, and she took off all her clothes, and she knew there would be like a trail of clothes, and he'd know she was naked. And so when he came up, that's when she told him about being ready to give him that after she graduates, because she's about to get her GED. And so he wants to know, he lets her know that um if she wants to further her education, he'll support her. He already set up a little studio for her to, with like a ton of sea glass, so she can create jewelry and things like that. Just they have a real understanding of one another, and they just provide each other with what they need. And that's how it ends. I thought it was really sweet. I really liked it. I mean, I still like Parker still ain't shit, but I do appreciate that he did push her that last time, because I think he realized there's no hope for this. She will never feel that way for me. And so, and the mom, she's at peace. She needed to be. She was just going to torture that girl. So I was like, good riddance. I didn't feel not an ounce of sympathy, because she went out the way she wanted to, is how I look at it. Um, but overall, I loved it. What did you guys think? Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.